Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Assalamualaikum and welcome back to the channel The Thinker's Golden and to our series on the life of the last messenger of Islam, Hazrat Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam. And today, guys, we're going to be talking about the setting of the story, right? Where the story takes place and all the details you need to understand the story better, right? So for those of you who are new to the channel or this is their first introduction to this channel or to this series, do check out the previous video so that you can have proper start to this journey that we have embarked upon. So let's get started. So today we start off with a small definition of setting. So in any story or in any sort of narration or historical narration that you may come across, you may need to understand that every historical narration has a story attached to it, because every historical narration has a number of series of events, or it is about a detail of someone's life. So a life is also a story of the person from the day of their birth to the day of their demise, right? So every story or every biography has to have a setting. So you can, you may be reading a children's book, you may be reading a novel, or you may be reading some other biography, and it must have a setting. So let's get into what a setting is. So a setting is a place or type of surrounding where something is positioned or where an event takes place, right? So a setting is not limited to a story. A setting can be the setting of an event, right? We could say that there was an accident, a roadside accident, a week ago, and someone might ask, where did that happen? And the person might say it happened on the 5th Street or on the highway or just around the corner. And those places, the highway and the corner and all those other places described, are actually the setting of that roadside accident. So guys, similarly, every story has a setting as well. This is where the majority part of the story takes place. So I would like you guys to do a small exercise. I would like you guys to pause the video for like 10 or 15 seconds and give yourself the time of 15 seconds to think of a setting where a story could take place. You can think of any story that you've read. You can think of a new setting or an imaginative setting, and I would very much like you guys to mention what you think of and mention it down in the comments below, so that we can have a discussion going on, right? So after you're done, I would like you to introduce to a few settings that will set your idea straight of what a setting is. So for those of you who are familiar with Alice and have read the book or watched any of the films of Alice in Wonderland, Alice in Wonderland is a story of a girl called Alice who falls down a rabbit hole and ends up in this magical place called Wonderland. And this is where she meets all these fantastical creatures like the Mad Hatter, the Cheshire Cat, and the Queen, and has these silly adventures where the whole story takes place. And this whole story, the place where all the characters are and where all the events take place in that book or movie, is actually Wonderland, right? So Wonderland is the setting of the story of Alice in Wonderland. So just to keep it interesting, let's take another example. So I am pretty sure there's not many people who haven't read Harry Potter. So if you've read the Harry Potter books, played any of the games, or have gone to see the movie, so Harry Potter is the story of the special chosen boy who is admitted into this special school called the Hogwarts School of Witchcraft and Wizardry. So the story of Harry Potter takes place in a setting called Hogwarts. And Hogwarts is essentially a magical school where they teach young kids to become wizards and witches, right? So Hogwarts is the setting of the story of Harry Potter. Any of the examples that we have discussed until now, they may exist in a fantasy sort of place or in our imaginations entirely. But with the life of Hazrat Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam, the setting of the story is in an actual place. So if it's in an actual place, it does exist on the world map. So let's explore it right now. So Arabia on the map. Let's explore where Arabia is on the world map. So this is the world map, which is like, you know, an illustrated world map with different distinctions according to their animals, right? And this is a fun way to see where Arabia is. So for those of you who may not be able to identify Arabia at first look, Arabia is right here in the center with the camel, right? So it is pretty much in the center, and this is where it is called. So the Western world, the world that's situated on the west, calls this region, or the English speaking world calls this region as the Middle East, because you can get the idea that in the eastern part of the world it is somewhere in the middle, right? So Arabia is denoted by this camel because Arabia is majorly desert, right? So if you're from Australia or the New Zealand or the Fiji Islands, or you know, any regions about in this region, Arabia would be to the northwest of you. And if you're from somewhere from Britain or Europe, Arabia would be to the southeast of you, right? You can see the relative position from Europe to Arabia, right? So we have the Eiffel Tower right here, and then we have the Elizabeth Tower, you know, with Big Ben right here, and you can get an understanding of where Arabia is according to your location. And likewise, if you're somewhere from North America or South America, Arabia would be to the east of you, right? And if you're somewhere from Asia, Pakistan, India, Southeast Asia, Arabia would be quite close to you, but it would still be in the south or southwest. So now, since we have this, illustrated idea of where Arabia is on the world map, let's explore it a little deeper, right? Just to get this, beautiful sense of the cultural aspect of where Arabia is, right? So Arabia is this, shoe or boot-shaped island or peninsula right off the coast of the Red Sea and the Arabian Sea, right? So you can see that it is shaped like a boot. This is where the toe would be, and this is the lower foot part extending up to the leg, right? So Arabia, which is preliminarily a desert, is divided into these countries. So modern day Arabia is divided into Saudi Arabia, then Yemen and Oman in the south, then the UAE, the United Arab Emirates, where the 2020 Expo is happening right now. Then we have Qatar and Kuwait. So Qatar is the country in which this year's Football World Cup is going to be held. And then you can see, so to the north of Arabia is the core or the cradle of civilization, which was the first ever civilization that existed. That was ancient Mesopotamia. So we have Iraq and Syria to the north, and then following to the east we have Iran, Afghanistan, leading to Pakistan and India. And then of course to the west of Saudi Arabia is Africa, and then to the northwest is Europe right here. And you get the whole idea of where this is in the world map, like we have just discussed. So by definition, or by looking at the map, Arabia is like a larger region, right? So our story, even though it takes place in Arabia, it takes place in a few following cities in Arabia, namely the city of Makkah, the city of Medina, and some other cities where the Prophet or the last messenger of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has ventured into, right? And our main focus would be on the city of Makkah and Medina. And the city of Makkah is famously known for having the Holy Kaaba, which is the house of God or Allah in Islamic belief. So now that we have an understanding of where Arabia is, on the world map, we have an idea of where. So now we need to get an idea of how, right? So in order to better understand a setting of any story of any place, we need to have a descriptive analysis or a descriptive idea of how the place or the setting looks like, right? So if we mention Hogwarts, we can mention that it was somewhere in the north of England, and then it was a castle type school, right? But that doesn't give us that much information. We need more, in order to realize an idea or a concept, or in order to realize a historical setting itself, we need to get an idea or the tiny little details that populate that setting. So we're going to talk about the conditions of Arabia before or at the time of the birth of the last messenger of Allah or Islam. So guys, I hope that you have a good understanding of what a setting is and how we need to get a better idea of a setting in order to understand the story. So those of you who may have questions, who may be a bit confused, or who are just looking to discuss any sort of setting or get much more detail, I would very much appreciate any sort of comments that you leave on this video, and I will be able to take the time and answer those, right? So I'm going to give you now this little new concept of definition, which is nomads, right? So what are nomads or nomadic people, right? So you may have heard of this, like, you may have seen a traveler, or, it may have been used to describe a person that is like, like sort of like a lone wolf who doesn't have a home or in a permanent place to stay. But the nomadic people or nomads in definition are similar to that, but let's get a better understanding of what they are. So nomadic people or nomads are a member of a people, right? So that travel from one place to another place to find fresh pasture or find fresh food or water for its animals. And nomadic people have no permanent home. So this may be a lot to digest, and let's break it down and then connect it up, right? All of these things that define a nomad are very closely related. So let's see the first part. They have no permanent home. And the reason they have no permanent home is because nomadic people are born in areas or live in larger areas or regions where there is lack of food, right? So if you have lack of resources and facilities, it's not an ideal place to live your whole life, right? So for example, if you're living in a place that can only feed you for like a few months or an year, you're going to need to change your home, right? So this is why they do have no permanent home. And since they have no permanent home and lack of food and water, they depend on their wildlife. In terms of plants and grass, and their animals and livestock to live, right? And as we all know, livestock like cows, sheep, goats, and all these other animals, they require water and abundance of food like grass and leaves to live, right? So since they have this scarcity or lack of food, they need to find more food. So they move from place to place in search of food. And since they have to move a lot, they cannot afford a permanent home. So this is why nomadic people like to live in tents, right? Or nomadic settlements, where they can just create a temporary home for a few months, and when they're done with that place, pack up and move to another place. So yes, I know this may sound like a very tough life compared to ours, but this was the reality of people, and this is still the reality of people that live even right now, right? So we are so used to facilities and things all around us that we do not even consider of moving our houses, right? So we have access to everything: food, water, snacks, restaurants, offices, and all those public things, just by a minute's walk, or just on a phone call. We have delivery and all those things. But the nomadic people's way of life, or their reality, was that they had to work for even the bare necessities of life. And this is why nomadic people had tougher lives, especially the nomadic people that lived in deserts like Arabia. So another interesting thought is that nomadic people are not the same. There are different sort of nomadic people in different areas. The nomadic people of Arabia are different from the nomadic people of, let's say, Mongolia, or from, let's say, the people of Africa, or the nomadic people of the Baltic or the Turkic regions, right? Because they have differences in climate and differences in culture and other things. So we are in relevance to the nomadic people of Arabia. So let's talk about the nomadic people of Arabia and where did they find food. So as we all know that Arabia was a desert, and deserts already have a lot of scarcity of water. And the only places where you can find water in deserts are called oases. So an oasis is this special sort of place in a desert that has some amount of water in it. Some oases are big and have a large amounts of water, right? And some oases are small that do not have that much water. So if you look at this image, you may get an idea of what an oasis could be. So you can see that there's a pool or a pond of water, and because of that pond of water, you can see signs of life, right? So you have grass, you have plants, you have palm trees, and because of that, people or nomadic people especially would like to create their temporary homes there, right? So they can use this water for their everyday use. They can use this water for drinking. They can use this water to for the thirst of their animals, and they can use this water to even grow crops, depending on the size of the oasis. And since oases were formed because there was water present under the ground, when water is present under the ground, it rises up to the surface. So if you had water on the surface, because of water in the ground, they would build these wells. A well is the sort of invention where you dig into the ground until you reach water, and then you make it into this firm sort of cylinder from where you can draw water out. Right? It's an easy way to draw water out of the ground. Yes, it may not be very clean water. It may not be filtered water or anything, like the sort of access to water we have nowadays, but it was still better than nothing, and it was water, fresh water out of the ground. So since we have the idea of where Arabia is, what is the condition of Arabia in terms of being a desert, and how did the people of Arabia live, and they lived like nomads, like we have discussed, Arabia at that time was very much different to the Arabia of now. Right? So now in Arabia, you have oil, you have these very rich countries, with skyscrapers and, all these facilities and, high-rise buildings. And, it is now a very marvelous tourist destination. But at that time, Arabia was about 70 to 80% or even 90% desert, right? And the population or the people of Arabia were actually a collection of scattered nomadic settlements and cities, right? And these nomadic settlements and cities were actually based on the location of water. The places that had less water or small oases, people would build nomadic settlements there because they couldn't afford to live there for more than a few number of years, right? And similarly, in places that had much more water or had bigger oases, people even built permanent cities there, right? So one such permanent city would be the city of Makkah, where the Holy Kaaba or the house of Islam in Islamic belief is located, right? Otherwise, there were nomadic settlements, some smaller city, some larger city. So this will be it from this video. So for the next time, we're going to discuss a little bit more about the social structure of the people of Arabia, right? So we've discussed that people lived in nomadic settlements. So there was a family system, and a very important family system that described the whole society of Arabia and Arabian nomads at that time. So we'll get into that, and then we'll discuss much more about Arabia in general, like religion and other aspects of Arabian society, right? So this will be it from me in this video, and I've tried to change the format of my video on someone's advice that I should keep these videos in a small 20-minute format instead of longer 40 minutes videos. So do let me know if this sort of format in a 20-minute video is something that you guys would appreciate more, and I'll be looking forward to all of your comments and your feedback on this video. Do let me know in the comments down below. I'll add any necessary links in the description, and I'll see you guys next time. Until then, take care, Allah Hafiz, and have a good day.